Well, let's now look at the creative industry here in Kenya, and you know for sure that the film industry in Kenya is the third largest in Africa after South Africa, Nigeria, and then we have Kenya. But what is Kenya film industry, or what is the Kenya Film Commission doing to help in the development of the film industry? Well, joining us in studio is Timothy Owase. He's the CEO of Kenya Film Commission. We'll be discussing this, plus the upcoming Kalasha Awards, who has been nominated and who is out. Well, thank you so much, Timothy, for joining us here. Help me understand this. When you look at the contribution of the film industry or the creative industry here in Kenya, the contribution of the industry to GDP, to the Kenyan GDP, is about 0.5%. When you compare these with Nigeria, which is about 2.3%, and putting in mind that Nigeria's economy is almost 5 times bigger than our economy. Then you go down to South Africa, whereby the industry contributes about 5.4%. And the question is this, why is this the case?
I think you rightfully put it. The Nigerian market is 5 times bigger than the Kenyan market. South Africa equally has quite an advanced status when it comes to filmmaking. And Kenya is an emerging market. When we talk about the creative economy in general, and more so focusing on the film industry, we have the potential to really do very well in Africa. And our projections, and also looking at the direction Kenya is taking, we do believe that we are able to really take the pole position, so to say, when it comes to the industry's contribution, the film industry contribution to our GDP. All we need to do, and what we are currently doing, is basically to put the real fundamentals into play.
Timothy, I mean, back in the 60s, in the 70s, and the 80s, I mean, Kenya, was a haven for movie makers, and we know world acclaimed films, were made out of this country. We have Out of Africa, for example, which went on, to be nominated for the Oscars. Then come the 90s and the 2000s, because of tough legislations, the film industry somehow went down. It is time now that we as a country we are trying to play catch up. And when you look at the development of the film industry here in Kenya compared to Nigeria back in the 70s and the 80s, I mean, you could not compare the two. Kenya was miles ahead. Now, Nigeria is a pace setter. What did we do wrong, or what are we doing right that we did wrong?
I think I'm happy to hear you mention that in the 70s, 80s, Kenya was doing well, the film industry scene. I wouldn't want to compare ourselves with Nigeria, because we know clearly where we are going. What we are doing right is that we are putting measures that are likely to reactivate and reposition the film industry to where it belongs. There are few fundamentals that we cannot ignore. One, to make Kenya competitive. And the competitiveness of a country or a destination for filming is not only the film incentives. We look at various aspects, starting with the capacity in terms of human resource, look at the infrastructure. When we talk about studios and other infrastructural facilities, we also need to look at the locations, which Kenya really has, and we have always had pride over this. And also just to correct the point that not so many films are being done in this country. I think Kenya is still a favorite for film production, but we do not have the ultimate capacity to achieve what we would like to achieve, and that's why we've gone back to the fundamentals.
We'll be coming back there, and actually one of the reasons why Hollywood or Bollywood film producers used to flock to Kenya was because of its natural beauty, from the valleys, to the oceans, to the lakes. And we'll be coming back to see how we as a country, we are trying to reposition ourselves, as a movie destination. But before we go there, let's first of all have a look at, something interesting here, where Lake Nakuru National Park hosts white rhinos, Rothschilds, giraffes, buffaloes, and migratory birds. It has a rhino sanctuary where you can drive up close to a white rhino. This week on the Magical Scenes, by the way, we want to focus on the county of Nakuru with a keen focus on tourist attractions in this county, even as we discuss how to revamp the movie industry here in Kenya.
They say between two pine trees there is a door leading to a new way of life. Lake Nakuru National Park is one of the only parks in Kenya where you can drive up close to wildlife. It is a photographer and outdoor enthusiast's paradise. It is a destination that you do game all year round owing to climatic weather patterns, conditions that favor the existence of wildlife in this habitat. And the magical bit in it is that you would get close to wildlife to an extent that you're able to establish certain features from them connecting with Mother Nature. The untamed freedom in wildlife evokes the magical feeling to a visitor.
We have the rhinos. We have a healthy population of lions. We have the particular giraffe, Rothschild, which is rare and doing quite well in this ecosystem. We have other species of interest, the other water birds that are also migratory, and several other plants and animal species. I could go on and on of interest.
As the guests drive in, it's actually a game drive because we are at the other side end of the park. And by the time the guests get to our lodge, they have had a very, very good taste of what the whole of Nakuru National Park has to offer. So that and the added advantage of having the best view in the Lake Nakuru National Park, we are an ideal destination.
One gets to enjoy the beauty and energy of the wild African bush, whether it is a baby rhino hopping about near its mom or monkeys gathering in families for warmth and love. Being able to see the beautiful wild animals firsthand is an experience that can be enjoyed time and time again.
I know it's known in the history of the world as the bird watcher's paradise. And this is simply because of the flamingo. Because it is on this lake that we have had the highest congregation of this particular species in the highest numbers at a go.
The leopards are elusive, so sightings are not guaranteed, but you may come across one during your visit at the park. My team and I discovered the power and beauty of nature during our short vacation. Setting up on the most raised facility offered us the glimpse of a lit Nakuru town in the night, as well as the stunning Lake Nakuru view.
We have a lot of buffalo. We have a water hole, and we have other interesting wildlife. We have so many species of birds.
A walking distance of all the animals in the park. A morning safari is equally first class and exciting. Irene Mchuma Udim, Magical Sense in the county of Nakuru.
And Irene Machuma there helping us to sample some of the beautiful attractions in Nakuru County. Interestingly enough, tonight we're talking about the film industry. And guess what? Nakuru is currently hosting the Lake International Pan-African Film Festival. You know, this is indeed an initiative that brings together filmmakers from Kenya, South Africa, Cameroon, Ghana, Uganda, and even Nigeria. So it's making it bigger out there. Well, we were discussing about how to turn around, you know, the film industry and what's being done. And we're talking to the Kenya Film Commission Chief Executive. This is Timothy Owase. Owase, we were discussing, you know, before we decided to have a look at what Nakuru has to offer. You were telling us, you know, some of the initiatives that KFC is undertaking, you know, to boost or to bolster the movie industry in Kenya.
Yes, indeed. For us to have a vibrant film industry, we have to focus on the key fundamentals. And the key fundamentals include the capacity of this country to be able to execute a big budget film. So we are very strong on pushing for capacity in terms of skills, starting from writing all the way to distribution. So we are really working on this as a key unlocking area. And also, other than that, attracting investors to be able to set up key facilities that are necessary to produce high quality products, products that can be consumed beyond Kenya. Because if we create content for ourselves only, then the market may not be as large to give us the kind of income that we need. I would like to see content that can be able to go beyond East Africa and other markets at large. And to do this, we are developing a number of our services. Some of those services include the resource center and production facilities, which we've had in Nairobi for some time. And now we are going to the devolved systems. Nakuru is one of the counties that are going to host this. We are partnering with the institutions like Canon, MultiChoice, KBC. We've just signed an MOU, and we are going out to set up under Studio Mashinani initiative to have these facilities available to the locals. When we train young filmmakers, we just don't want to train them and leave them hanging. We would like to see the trained young filmmakers being able to move beyond the training to get the facilities to produce or tell their stories. Also, we have other strong partners like StarTimes. And StarTimes is providing audience development facilities. The reason as to why audience are critical. Today, I just mentioned to you that I came from Nakuru. And from Nakuru, I got a very interesting insight that there is a whole street that covers almost a kilometer, and the entire street is only bars and restaurants. So from a filming perspective, my thoughts were very quick that the reason as to why businessmen have focused on that street to only offer bars and restaurants is maybe because the county hasn't attracted enough for film facilities to be put in place. So that's a challenge that we need to put this so that we concentrate on various.
In the last 10 years, Kenya has lost about 5 big budget movies, to South Africa. And one of the highlights, has been, high taxation. And, says that people have to pay, to counties. For example, if you have to shoot a movie here in Nairobi, you have to pay fees to the Nairobi county government. You also have to pay licenses. You also have to pay taxes, to ship in your equipment. What are we doing, to address these discrepancies?
Thank you. The concept of one-stop shop is critical to us at the Commission and the Ministry of ICT. We are harmonizing how government offers services or delivers services to its citizens. And when it comes to licensing for filming, the e-film shop is going to provide us with a solution to this, where you will only have to visit one office and get all the licenses that you need. But what I would like to also put forth is that governments world over provide regulation and facilitate a conducive environment for filming, for incentives. And the issue of losing films to South Africa, I think still revolves around what I mentioned earlier, that we really need to invest more in facilities, because when you go to Cape Town is fully booked throughout the year because they have facilities that can accommodate big budget films. If we got big budget films like 5 in Kenya, maybe we cannot be able to accommodate because we have less facilities. That's what we are. Yeah. So what the government is doing, and as we speak now, I can authoritatively confirm that if you brought in a big budget film, the government is willing to give you the kind of incentives that you require, be it on waivers on the licenses, access to national parks, use of drones, and many more. All you need is to visit Kenya Film Commission for facilitation, and that's why we are there.
Well, tell me this. I mean, we have also seen, a situation whereby, some Kenyan movies, have been banned from being screened in the Kenyan market. Do you think this is somehow discouraging would-be movie producers in Kenya?
Okay, I won't delve into my sister agency's mandate, but what I can bring forth is the fact that when it comes to film or content, classification is part of the production life cycle of any, and this is something that happens across the world. All that classification does is to inform the audience that movie X is good for viewing at X time. It's not about banning. It's just about educating parents, educating youngsters, those movie-going people, that this one is suitable for X and not Y. So I don't think there is any problem with that. When it comes to banning, I do not think there is any provision anywhere for banning movies. But there is a provision in our constitution for classifying movies, and that's what our sister agency does. That doesn't discourage, and maybe that brings to the question as to whether there is room for us to review the laws that are currently regulating or controlling the way we do business of film. Yes.
And when you look at the mandate of the Kenya Films and Classification Board, vis-a-vis, what you do as Kenya Film Commission, I mean, there's a thin line between, the role that you play, which are complementing roles. Do you think it is high time, that we look at the whole regime that governs the movie industry here in Kenya with the aim of making them futuristic and more progressive?
I hold a different view for one reason. Our role is development, promotion, and marketing. It's purely developmental, while our sister agency's role is regulatory.
Regulation.
So there is a black and white which means there is no thin line. If we do not have more films being produced in Kenya, then our sister agency doesn't have a job to do. Our role is to build capacities, nurture talent, advise the ministry on what policies to be adjusted, and also create markets for local content. So for me, I think we, as much as we need to look at the laws regulating the industry, we also need to appreciate that regulation is critical in any nation. So content regulation, and that's why even broadcasters regulated by the Communications Authority.
Do you feel like the Kenyan film industry is over-regulated?
That's an interesting question. I do not have a measure. However, we can be able to
You know, when
more.
you talk to, you know,
Yes.
the measure is there. I mean, you just need to talk to film producers and they'll give you their thoughts.
It's not over-regulated. What I think needs to be done, and we are working on that, and I just mentioned about e-film shop, is coming up with a one-stop shop for licensing so that we are speaking one language. If you want to make a film and you come to my office, you need not to visit 20 other offices. I think we just want to make the business of film being friendly and conducive. That will provide an array of filmmaking with an ease.
Owase, because we have to wrap it up. Timothy, what are we doing about piracy, which is also a big movie killer in this country?
I think piracy is being addressed. Recently, His Excellency the President directed that the Kenya Copyright Board moves to the Ministry of ICT. And that's where our parent ministry is, which means the coordination of IP controls, copyright issues, and trademarks and so on, all those things are now being harnessed and managed from a central point, which will provide room for ease of control and management of piracy. Remember, piracy is not a Kenyan problem. It's a worldwide problem. And all we need is to embrace technology to deal with piracy. So as a producer, anytime you are making content or you're producing content, you also need to think about how you're going to distribute and deal with the vice, because government will enforce the law, but at the same time, it may not come to your production house and advise you how to safeguard your product. But you'll be able to, the government will always strive to give awareness that is necessary for filmmakers to apply.
The glitter and the glamour of Kalasha awards is upon us. What should we expect from this ceremony?
Thank you. Kalasha is set for the 30th of this month. We are very ready to award 34 winners in 34 categories. And there are many surprises in terms of what to expect. We have critical partners like StarTimes who've come on board. And for the very first time in 9 years, Kenya Film Commission will be issuing cash rewards to the winners and many more other goodies, which is something that we all need to look forward to. Other than that, we have what we call Kalasha Writers Hub. All those stories that will be highlighted within Kalasha, upon the closure of Kalasha Awards, we are planning to have a writers workshop where we'll bring in a very experienced facilitator from Europe to really provide a proper closed workshop to just enhance our stories and the way we tell them. So on 30th, we are ready to host you. At the same time, for those who haven't voted, the voting lines are open. You can be able to download the StarTimes own app, then vote for your favorite products.
We look forward for the awards and we wish all the contestants all the best.
Thank you. And
very good. Thank you so much indeed, Timothy, for joining us here.
Pleasure.
Very well. We've been talking to Timothy Owase. He's the CEO of Kenya Film Commission, joining us here to help us understand what the Commission is doing to drive the growth of the film industry in Kenya.